And let's get into that snowstorm as Vancouver braces for 15, maybe 20 centimeters of snow. A parade of storms is also set to strike Ontario, and a cold streak hits Atlantic Canada. Bundle up in Halifax this morning. We're down to minus 15, and you're not getting much warmer as we go into the afternoon. Thanks so much for being here with us. I'm Rachel Schoutsen. You're watching the Weather Network. Happy Saturday morning. Maybe not so happy if you're on the lower mainland, though. When we get this much snow, it certainly is one to talk about, and this system definitely has enough moisture. It certainly is being met at the perfect time with cold air, and this spells a decent system in your backyard. So as we go into the early morning hours, the system is really just getting going along the central coast. By the time we look at the afternoon and evening, that's when it certainly will be in Vancouver and moving across the lower mainland. Highways like the Malahat and Highway 1 set to have some of the biggest impacts with this system. As it moves across the Fraser into tomorrow, we will continue to see blowing snow, and as the winds gust close to 60 and 70 kilometers an hour, this could spell trouble. This could spell whiteout conditions. And if you can stay with us throughout our show this morning, Rachel Modestino is going to be joining us too. She's going to take a deeper dive into this snow and really pinpoint some of those very heavy areas. And also Mia Gordon is on the ground, and she'll be keeping us up to date from Victoria and Vancouver this weekend. So Saturday through Sunday, 15 to 20 centimeters of snow for Vancouver. It is not out of the question. As we take a closer look here at the lower mainland, you can see this is a big snowstorm in your backyard. A jam-packed segment coming your way. We also have storm center coverage in British Columbia for a big storm coming into the lower mainland. As we recap the big storm across southern Ontario, we saw 17 centimeters of snow in Toronto. I know Hamilton only 8 here, but remember, that's because we saw freezing rain and ice pellets with that. So lesser amounts of snow, but we still all got a lot of precipitation right across southern Ontario. It was a messy system, and now today we have a little bit more snow to go, and it's an interesting setup here. It all has to do with a little bit of lake effect. We have a weak system coming through, but with strong easterly winds traveling over Lake Ontario, of course, Lake Ontario is certainly not frozen, we are seeing a little bit of lake effect snow, and that could bring some heavier amounts Toronto east and in towards Pickering. So keep an eye out on the 401 along the lakeshore as well, down towards the beach. This is where we could pick up a little bit of enhancement as we go through this afternoon. But generally for places like Oakville, Milton, Brampton, we are seeing about 5 centimeters of snow at max with this little bit of moisture, a little blip that's coming through. As we take a look at some of those conditions, -4 in Toronto, -13 in Ottawa and in Montreal. So a bit of a cooler start to the day. And then for Atlantic Canada, wow, that's cold. -9 is your high in Halifax, -14 for Charlottetown. And you can see Halifax, you are stuck. Or you can complain about it. It's all about your perspective, right? But we're not escaping it. This system is targeted right for the lower mainland. This could be bringing in upwards of 20 centimeters of snow. A couple fronts moving through associated with a lot of moisture and perfectly timed with this colder weather coming through as well. So as we look at some of those wind gusts, they could be reaching up to about 60 kilometers an hour, and that's paired with blowing snow this afternoon. This season, liquid gold as we call it. We're going to fill you in on the next 3 minutes about this season and how the harvest is going. And also, is maple syrup healthy? That's a question we're going to answer too. I had a chance to talk to a nutritionist in Ottawa. But first, let's take a look at some of those beautiful maple syrup trees. And if you head online to theweathernetwork.com, Nathan Coleman has a great story where he talks about how this year's harvest could be down in some regions. Now, our next part of the maple syrup story has to do with its nutrition. Is maple syrup healthy? I had a chance to talk to Rachel Caven. She's a nutritionist in Ottawa, and here's what she had to say. All right, now who's ready for those pancakes with some maple syrup this morning? You know, you might want to have a real good breakfast if you are in Vancouver because snow is coming. That's exactly why we are in Storm Center, and we will continue that coverage throughout the morning. Just want to show you a bit of the rest of the country. -16 in Winnipeg today, -12 in Regina. We're -4 in Toronto, -13 for Ottawa and for Montreal, and we do have some light snow coming. Just wanted to show you those overnight temperatures too because that really helps those maple syrup trees pump into production. We need those cold nights, and we're certainly going to get it. -23 tonight in Winnipeg, and look at Halifax. Halifax down to -15. This is one of the coldest stretches we've seen in Atlantic Canada. And you can see as we go into the start of March, that cold air does linger, especially over Newfoundland too. And also, speaking of the start of March, well, the Weather Network has a special day. We are releasing our spring forecast. And I know we're talking about 15 centimeters of snow for the lower mainland. It certainly doesn't feel like spring, but I promise you, spring weather is eventually on its way. And if you stay with us, of course, we will have our team coverage as we talk about that big snow that moves into the lower mainland today. Wow, what a mess. Perfectly timed. Lots of moisture meets up with the cold, and you certainly have been getting a decent amount of cold air. And when it's timed up just so perfectly with this moisture, this spells some trouble for people in Vancouver. I'm glad you're here with us. I'm Rachel Schoutsen. You're watching the Weather Network, and we're going to take you through this storm. We have got the most accurate and up-to-date coverage. Mia Gordon is going to be basically transitioning from Victoria into Vancouver as she follows this storm. We also have meteorologist Rachel Modestino. She'll be joining us throughout the hour as well, so we can take a deeper dive into this snow that is moving across the lower mainland. So this here is a little snapshot as we go into Saturday afternoon. Through the morning hours, it really starts along the central coast. Through the afternoon, that's when it's in your backyard across the lower mainland. For Vancouver, 15 centimeters of snow is not out of the question. For Richmond, this is where we're looking at lesser amounts, closer to 10 here. And you can see as we go into Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, it still remains basically east of the Fraser into the Okanagan. This is where we'll still see that blowing snow, but Vancouver eventually clearing out of this. But what a mess. Places like Hope, travel along the Trans-Canada, travel along the Malahat. It's not going to be pretty today, and it certainly can be very dangerous. So as we look at the snowfall totals, this is what we're expecting, the accumulation that we're expecting. Vancouver, we normally don't see you in the purples where we are expecting 15 to 20 centimeters of snow. So this is going to be a high impact storm. It will create havoc on the roads. It will create trouble for you. This is a closer look, and you can see those heavier amounts, certainly in places like Langley, in Mission, as we look at places like Pitt Meadows and Port Coquitlam. Burnaby, again, on that line of about 15 to 20. And then you can see Tawasin, lesser amounts for White Rock as well. So this is a good little snapshot, basically showing you where that heavier snow is really going to start to build up, especially in Victoria, but a high impact Saturday. That's certainly in your backyard. Well, enjoy it this weekend. You certainly won't be seeing it so beautiful on Monday and Tuesday. As we go into this afternoon, Toronto likely to see some snow, Kingston, Ottawa as well, and that is because we have a weak system coming through and some lake enhancement. And you know, before we look ahead to the next storm, we have to clean up from the last one. So please make sure your car is cleared before you get out today. The power of the weather, the lack of rain, and the misery it is causing in beautiful places like Venice, Italy. Let me show you some of the scenes, because really they are shocking. And then meteorologist Rachel Modestino is going to be joining us to explain why. Now, Rachel Modestino, you actually had a chance to travel here and experience that lake. How different does that look?
It is quite substantial in terms of looks, because that is supposed to be quite an island that you can only get to via boat. So seeing that pathway there.
Okay, so let's talk about this. What is the drought situation right now? I know we want to focus on three special places: Italy, France, and Spain. So let's dive into it.
Well, for the past 30 days, the drought monitor looks something like this, and where you're seeing the red, and high pressure causes sinking air. So think of it as a weather shield. It doesn't allow for lift and convection to occur, so that's why it has really been dry over this region. In fact, in the last 30 days, France has not recorded any amount of precipitation.
It really is remarkable, and it is a sign globally of a changing climate. You know, some scientists in Italy have said that they need 50 consecutive days of rain in order to climb out of this. So what comes next, Rachel? Is there really any relief in sight?
Well, there has been relief in terms of the weather pattern. We've seen a shift into more low pressure systems making their way across the Mediterranean. And what that means is rain and snowfall, not the copious amounts that we need.
And let's right now dive into that weather story a little bit in California, because that's another big international headline that we're covering today.
It is quite crazy to see that through this weekend.
All right, Rachel, thanks so much for joining us. Your local forecast is just ahead. And this is where your active weather story begins. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this weekend here at the Weather Network. I'm Rachel Schoutsen. Meteorologist Rachel Modestino also joining us this weekend. There is a big storm looming into Monday, and if you can stay with us, she's going to break down some of those details. Another Colorado low, another nasty one. As we look at today, snow is back in the forecast yet again. It's a bit of a weak system moving through, but it is quite widespread. It's even bringing snow all the way up towards the nickel belt. Our temperatures are certainly cold enough this morning and into the afternoon to sustain snow. We're not dealing with any ice pellets or freezing rain with this system. And it does look like the city of Toronto may see a little bit of enhancement, and that's because of an easterly wind. As the wind travels across Lake Ontario, it's able to pick up a bit of steam, and it's able to enhance some of the snowfall totals essentially right in between Toronto and Pickering. So this is where we could possibly exceed about 5 centimeters of snow. Places like Burlington, Oakville, Mississauga, generally about 3 to 5 centimeters of snow with this. It's going to be light and fluffy, so it could stack up a little bit more. But just a little more snow to go as we start off this weekend. Overnight tonight, we're back down and feeling cold. -6, feels like -12. The colder air starts to recede a little bit as we go into tomorrow. Sunday is certainly the better day to get outside. Sunday morning, we're -3 in Toronto, -1 in Oakville. And as we go into the afternoon, we're 3 degrees in Toronto, 4 in Hamilton, 8 in Windsor. So you can see that warmth starting to build back into the forecast. Now that I'm a mom, I look at a day like this and I think, okay, maybe I won't have to battle my toddler with wearing gloves as we go into Sunday afternoon. So that's my silver lining of that forecast this weekend. This look behind me, it looks like a snow globe right now in Oakville, Ontario. This is just outside of our Oakville studios. We are looking at essentially a pretty weak system coming through. That's today for Saturday morning with a bit of enhancement with Lake Ontario. So let's dive into this one first before we get into the bigger Monday storm.
Well, I just want to talk about how big those flakes look like behind you. That is completely different to what we saw last work week with the ice and the very small freezing drizzle. And it's all because of our temperatures. We're right around -3 through.
Okay, so a close eye on highways like Highway 401, Toronto East out towards Pickering and Oshawa, Lakeshore as well, the Beach Village too. This is where we could see some of those snowfall totals build up. So let's look at some of the numbers here, some of the temperatures as we go today in Niagara. Soak in Sunday because the next system is going to be bigger and it's going to pack in that very wintry punch. So Rachel, let's take a look at California now because this system right now over California and it's bringing in blizzard warnings across the state.
It's quite a sight to see. You don't often see a beach
track right up the jet stream and into our backyard. So let's take a look at the storm right now and where you think it's going to head.
Well, when we track that energy, you can see it there.
Okay, so for impact on the drive, we're thinking Monday morning we should still be in the clear across the GTA, but it's more of a Monday evening story where things could get really messy for us, right?
Yes, and then there may be a period of ice as well as we progress into the Monday evening drive. That's going to be the one that has the biggest impact.
Okay, so when we talk about ice, we know the last storm, it was really dramatic. It was intense for so many regions. What do you think the chances are of this one developing in that same pattern? All right, another Colorado low coming into southern Ontario. Rachel, thanks for joining us.